Hello, Michael Bull here with America's Commercial Real Estate Show. We're at the IREM Global Summit 2017 in Chicago. We have Dustin Read here, and he is a professor with Virginia Tech, right? And you guys have done some extensive studies on kind of property management, asset management, and I think sometimes when people own properties and are buying properties, think about, well, what is asset management?
Well, that's a great question, and it's actually the question that IREM engaged us to study a little over a year ago. We've spent the last 18 months out talking with asset managers all over the country that work for some of the biggest real estate investment shops, really trying to get to the bottom of that, look at how they approach asset management, what functions are involved in the asset management process, and how asset managers typically go about their work and interface with property managers. And we're finding they do it in a whole lot of different ways.
Yeah, I would imagine so, with all the different size companies, all the different types of properties. And you know, when I think about asset management, I think I have something in my mind. It's kind of, you're kind of like the owner. You're making the decisions as the owner, and you're kind of directing the property management. How wrong am I?
No, I think you're exactly on track. That, you know, what we tried to do is step away from looking at asset management as a profession and really thinking about it as a process. So a process that involves helping ownership with acquisition and disposition decisions, engaging in market research and financial analysis, overseeing the work of property management and leasing teams, driving operational efficiency and engaging in surveillance activities, just a few examples. And what we find is that there's general agreement that all those activities kind of fall within the asset management world, but how those functions are allocated and who's responsible for each one of those functions within an organization can vary quite a little bit.
I bet. Now, did you see any best practices while you were out there talking to all these folks?
Yeah, you know, I think that the biggest best practice and at a high level is trying to prevent asset management from becoming a kind of a redundant middle management function. So making sure that the allocation of responsibilities between an asset management team and a property management team and a portfolio management team are discrete enough so they're not stepping on each toes and they're all actually engaging activities that drive portfolio value.
Yeah, and I think there's also a lesson for smaller property owners, right? They may get caught up in the day-to-day of managing the property, but they also have to kind of look down at the business, look at the asset management part of it, and make proper decisions, right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. And I think there's increasingly an emphasis that you need to run the assets well and you need to drive for operational efficiency. But at the end of the day, somebody has to be sitting back and looking at long-term strategy and value creation. Yeah. And really, that's the asset manager's role at the end of the day.
Yeah. So how do property managers look at asset managers? It seems like some people are kind of doing dual roles here.
Yeah, so there is a fair bit of overlap, and there's a lot of talking about the blurring of the lines between asset managers and property managers, and I don't know that we necessarily see it that way, or it's not the perceptions of asset managers we talk to. They see them as very discrete and separate functions that just increasingly have to work together in response to competitive pressures.
And how many folks did you guys talk to?
Just under 100, so about 93 formal interviews with asset managers for some of the biggest shops in the country.
Okay, so I'll have to ask you this. What about mistakes to avoid? You had to see some areas where, we've been talking to some people who are really good at this.
Yeah, you know, the biggest thing I think we heard folks say over and over again was a tendency for asset managers to become spreadsheet junkies and not getting out in the field enough, not talking to brokers, not talking to the property management team, not really keeping their fingers on the pulse of the market. So while a lot of asset managers' work is surveillance and reporting oriented, you can't lose sight that these are real physical assets that have to be run and they operate in competitive markets. And the more asset managers are out on the ground, the better they tend to be at their jobs.
Yeah, well, that makes a lot of sense. Now, you've been at these IREM events before. What do you think about this convention, this summit, and how have you seen things going this year? Is there some excitement about real estate? Are people concerned about where we are in the cycle? What's kind of the sense you're getting?
You know, there hasn't been as much talk about the economic cycle as I'd expected, actually. I think it's a great question. But folks around here seem pretty optimistic that I think there's more and better investment management opportunities all the time. And folks here are excited about getting out and networking and seeing where those opportunities might be.
Yeah. And how's Chicago been so far?
Chicago's a lot of fun. I made it to the playoff game yesterday. Got to, unfortunately for the Chicagoans, had to watch the Cubs lose, but had a nice time.
That's great. Well, great information. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Michael. Appreciate it.
Michael Bull here at 2017 IREM Summit in Chicago.